My name is Andile Khumalo, and I am joined today by Musa Mabesa, who is the Principal Executive Officer of the GEPF. Thank you so much, Musa, for joining me and to also provide some clarity on this matter. Let me kick off by asking you to please explain what actuarial interest factors are and why the GEPF needed to update them as of the 1st of October 2025.
Thank you, Andile. So maybe I'll start by explaining first that the GEPF, as a defined benefit pension fund, guarantees the payment of retirement benefits at retirement. So the scheme is used to ensure that we can pay members what we promise them in terms of the GEP law. In order for us to do this, we do what we call every 3 years a statutory actuarial valuation, which is where our actuaries conduct a valuation of our liabilities to understand how much we need to set aside today in order to provide for members at retirement. Understanding that all our members are at different stages of their working careers, they've contributed over different years and they earn different salaries, our actuaries then work out what is called an actuarial interest factor. This factor is used to calculate a member's entitlements at retirement, which is a simple formula. We need your last average salary over the last 2 years before retirement, the number of years of service in the government where you've been contributing towards the GEPF, and then we use this factor, and the factor being the present day value of R1 of salary for 1 year of service, so that we can project and also bring to today's value what your benefits are. So when the GEPF does a statutory valuation once every 3 years, these factors are then brought into play by working out the possibility of increases in the value of the fund's assets, as well as the demographics of our members, whether it's the mortality rate of the members, when members are going to retire, how long they're going to live after retirement, so we can provide the best estimate possible on their retirement funds.
Now, before you answer my specific question, so you started by making it clear that the GEPF is a defined benefit fund. What does that actually mean? Just as a follow-up question, what does that actually mean for members and their benefits? Because a lot of members are worried about this entire issue affecting their benefits.
What that means is that the GEPF promises to pay you a pension for life when you retire at the GEPF. There are instances where members die in service or a pensioner dies as a GEPF member. With more than 10 years of service, we will pay the benefits to a surviving spouse or a beneficiary as nominated. So a defined benefit scheme is we've defined the benefits that you will get using that simple formula I shared earlier, and that will be paid for the rest of the life of the member or the pensioner or beneficiary.
Okay, so specifically then, how do these factors then tie into the fund's statutory actuarial valuation as of the 31st of March 2024?
Indicated before, the GEPF values its liabilities, meaning we need to work out how much money do we need to have today for all the members that are in service and those that are already retired to ensure we can provide for them in the future. So these factors then convert what your benefits are today, understanding what we would be paying you in the future. So a set of assumptions are made by our actuaries, such as how much increases members will get in their salaries over their working life, understanding that retirement ages will vary. This is then factored in. Hence, I use the example of we use R1 of salary and 1 year of service to work out this factor so that we can apply it consistently amongst all members if they decide to exit the fund before retirement. I think this is the most important part. If a member resigns before retirement, we will need to work out what is their share of the fund in terms of this benefit promise at retirement. But because of early withdrawal, we will need to work out their share of the fund at the point of exit.
I hear you. Okay, so I think you've explained the step-by-step process at which the GEPF follows to update these actuarial interest factors. But I understand that there was a consultative process that was involved. Can you walk us through what that entails, including the role of employee organizations and labor unions in that process?
So in terms of the GEP law and rules which governs how the fund is managed, we have to conduct a statutory actuarial valuation, which is working out the value of our liabilities, which is what we have to pay members at retirement at least once every 3 years. Stemming from this actuarial valuation, the GEP law and rules also expect us to consult with labor unions who represent our members. We consult because valuations as well as the actuarial interest factors will change the benefit and how it's calculated. So benefit changes have to be consulted with unions. So what we do, once the board has adopted the statutory actuarial valuation outcome and the factors that come out of that process, we will run this past the Minister of Finance, who guarantees the fund. And thereafter, we will write to each and every employee organization or labor union to take them through this actuarial valuation and the resultant actuarial interest factors, and thereby allowing them to comment or question these factors, which will have an impact on how we calculate benefits. We gave members through the employee organizations around 3 months for them to look into this resultant actuarial valuation and the factors. And on the 31st of July 2025, the comment period closed, wherein we also consulted the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, the PSCBC. That's where labor and the employer, represented by the Department of Public Service and Administration, they need to discuss and negotiate benefits on behalf of members. We presented to this forum as well in July, just before the closing date of 31 July, and there was no resistance or pushback from employee organizations as they understood the need for these factors in line with the statutory actuarial valuation.
But let's get to the crux of the matter, Musa, which is the fact that these revised factors have led to the actuarial interest values being on average 15% rather, lower than the 2021 factors. So if you compare this particular valuation versus 2021 factors, it's 15% lower on average. What are the key implications of this update for GEPF members? Because I think the biggest issue that people are concerned about is their estimated withdrawal benefits. What becomes the actual impact?
Let me remind everyone that the GEPF is set up to provide retirement benefits. So if a member leaves before their retirement age, we need to work out what is the fair value of what has been promised to them at retirement. But because they are leaving much earlier than retirement, we need to give them the equivalent of what they are entitled to in terms of the formula that I shared earlier. Yeah. Number of years of service, the average salary of the member, and this factor, which seeks to bring today's value of what we've promised you in the future. So what this means this time around is the actuaries, in looking at the assumptions that I spoke about, economic assumptions, as well as the demographic assumptions, talking to members exit from the fund, how long we think they will live, how many will retire due to ill health, which is much earlier than the anticipated retirement age, how long we think our investment returns will work for us in the long term, salary increases of active members whilst they're still working. All these projections are put together to work out this actuarial interest factor, which will allow us to value what is the member's interest today before retirement. This allows that we pay out members what they are equally due from the fund and not to disadvantage future members. I'll give you a simple example. Right. If the GEPF promises that at retirement it will give members a house, the price of the house may change over time, but at retirement they will definitely get the house in terms of the specifications that have been provided. Right. If a member exits the fund before retirement, we have to work out what is today's value of that house, because that house had been valued based on a future projection, and the member is now exiting much earlier than anticipated. So we have to work out what is an equitable value of this promise at the time that they exit, so that they do not earn more than what other members will get in the future.
Is that why members have noticed reductions in estimates for withdrawal benefits, but not for death or retirement benefits? Just explain that. Why is that the case?
So as the GEPF promises to pay you a pension, which is determined based on the formula at retirement and death as indicated. If a member leaves before that, what we estimate today will be less or more based on the actuarial interest factors. I must explain to members that in the event that our anticipated return on investment or the growth in our investments anticipated to be higher than what we think it will be, it requires us to hold less benefits for our members today because we know they will grow at a higher rate to the point of retirement. And this is the case with the 2024 valuation and the factors, is that the actuaries anticipate that the rate of growth of our investments and our return on investments will grow at a faster pace going into the future. Therefore, we need to set aside less funds today in order to meet that promise at retirement. So if a member leaves today, we'll have to pay them a lesser benefit than what was reflected before the updated statutory valuation and factors.
Now, Musa, a common question that's coming from members is, why have their pension benefits appeared to reduce? For instance, some are seeing drops as much as 100,000 Rand or even more, depending on their profile. How do you respond to these concerns?
I'll show members that the drop in the pension quoted values is not a loss of funds on their part. What the GEPF does is it values a member's benefits at a point in time based on the circumstances that we've indicated before around economic assumptions and demographic assumptions. So to the extent that the promised benefits at retirement are X amount, if a member chooses to leave much earlier and the circumstances indicate that the value of a member's interest in the fund at the time of premature exit, be it resignation, would then necessitate us to reduce the benefit at the time of exit. This is to ensure fairness in how we pay benefits and members get an equal share of the fund based on the formula that I shared with you earlier, being the number of years of service, the average salary over the last 2 years, and a factor. And the factor is what brings us to the present day value of your benefits before retirement.
Gotcha. And that takes me to my next question. When people see these drops, the perception that's created is that the money has disappeared or it's vanished or it's missing. Can you just give us some assurance that no money is missing?
I can assure our members no money is missing. I'll go back to my initial point. The GEPF guarantees you a pension based on the average of your last 2 years' salary, the number of years of service, which is very important as well, because that will determine your retirement benefits, as well as an actuarial factor. Now, if the projections give us a different calculation of what we need to set aside today for a member, we will need to afford a member those early exit benefits commensurate with what they are entitled to in the fund as of today. But if a member stays until retirement, they will get the promised benefit. So no money has disappeared. What we promise members is what we promise to pay them, and it's guaranteed by the government through the Minister of Finance. We ensure that we don't have to call on that guarantee because the fund is currently 119% funded, meaning for every 1 Rand in liability, which is the money we hold to pay benefits in future, the GEPF has 1 Rand and 19 cents to cover those liabilities. So no money has been lost. It's just a change in the value of a member's entitlements at a point in time before retirement.
What are these GEPF laws or rules that actually protect members' benefit? Because I think people do attach some value to the fact that there are laws and rules that would protect my benefit. What are they? Just take us through them very briefly.
A defined benefit scheme, it guarantees your pension and your benefits are defined. Ours are defined in terms of the formula I shared earlier, and it's good that I have to repeat this formula. We look at the average salary of a member of the last 2 years before they retire, plus the number of years that they've been in service and have been contributing to the fund, multiplied by a factor. The more number of years of service and the higher your salary, the higher your retirement benefits. So that's where this becomes different for different members. This is the guarantee that we make for our members. For every member above, with years of service above 10, this formula will be applied consistently and they will get the benefits in terms of how they have worked in service, the number of years, as well as the last average salary. So that is guaranteed. Whereas if it was not guaranteed, we would not be telling members that we'll pay them according to the years of service and the average salary that they would have earned before retirement. So this is the guarantee that your pension is based on a formula which does not change. So the circumstances will be informed by your years of service as well as your last average salary over 2 years before retirement.
So, Musa, has the GEPF implemented similar updates to actuarial interest factors before? Maybe members have forgotten this has happened before. And if it has, what were the reasons and outcomes in those cases?
Yes, the GEPF has implemented similar circumstances before. Once every 3 years, the GEPF is required to conduct a statutory actuarial valuation, the result of which is these actuarial interest factors, which will determine how members' benefits will be calculated at that point in time based on those circumstances. The last valuation was in 2021 as at 31 March 2021. And with that valuation outcome, some factors increased, some decreased, and we implemented those in 2022 following the consultation process. Similarly, 2024, the 31 March 2024 valuation resulted in adjustments to our actuarial interest factor, which were revised downwards based on the economic assumptions and demographic assumptions, which have now led to this, on average, 15% reduction in factors and benefits for members who exit the fund before retirement.
Do you have any advice for members who might be worried about what their statements are saying, or maybe even considering other options for themselves? Any advice from you?
I think the most important thing for members is to remind them that they're saving for retirement. So we would encourage members to remain in the fund until retirement so they can get the benefits that have been promised in terms of the GEP law and rules. It goes back to the formula that I shared with members. To the extent that members may leave prematurely, either through resignation before retirement, we would unfortunately have to then work out what is the fair value of their benefits at the time that they exit. So members should stay in the fund until retirement so they can get their pension benefits for life.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Musa, for clarifying the GEPF's revised actuarial interest factors. It's reassuring that members' benefits are secure, and of course that the fund is also secure from a long-term sustainability perspective. For those of you watching that still have more questions, we encourage you to please visit the GEPF's official website or contact their support channels directly. Remember, staying informed is key to managing your retirement effectively. Thank you so much for joining us.